welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Today we are here. This is the second of a series of events that Perform Europe is doing called Reimagine in Touring in Practice. So after the touring phase of Perform Europe, we are now in the moment of sharing what happened for the 42 project during their Perform Euro tour. So we are very, very excited to have this moment to share with the sector and anybody that is curious to hear what happened. While I see still people coming in, I will just give you some background about Perform Europe. I'm pretty sure you might all know, but just to recap, so Perform Europe is a funding scheme for the performing arts sector, co-funded by the European Union and implemented by 6 organizations: ITM, IFA, EDN, Circostrada, Idea Consult, and Pearl. So it's a funding scheme to innovate the way we do touring in the sector in a way that it's more inclusive, diverse, balanced, and green. Very relevant for the call that we're here today, across all the 40 Creative Europe countries. Perform Year number 2 started in 2023, and now we are in the last month of the second edition. Through the Perform Europe open call, we were able to grant 2.1 million to 42 partnerships across all Creative Europe countries. These partnership have more than 180 partners, and they presented over 60 shows with more than 280 presentations. So they really went across all the Creative Europe countries. So this is the context. The touring and the touring phase ended in November. So now we are here to discover what happened, and we thought of giving the word directly to the projects. We thought this was the best way for you to discover what happened. So today we're specifically focusing on green practices. So we wanted to discover with 3 examples how the Perform Europe project have been testing new ways of integrating green practices in their touring, not just in their artistic work, but as an holistic practice. So we have here today 3 project representatives. We have Lisa Gilardino from Italy, from the project The Mountain Range Beyond Borders. Then we have Alexandra Wingate from Animalariums Constellations. And then we have Alexandra Mihali from Body Landscapes. So the meeting is going to go with a short presentation from each project. So you're going to understand what's their thematic and also how the touring went for them. And then we're going to launch into a discussion between the 3 project representatives. We ask each other to also study and read about each other projects. So we hope it's going to go into the flow of be curious about each other and discovering what are the learnings, the practices, and so on. And then, of course, we're going to have a lot of time also to include everybody in the room to the discussion. So we hope you're going to have lots of questions and curiosity for the speakers. So without any further ado, I can give the word directly to our first speaker, which is Lisa.
Hello, good morning, and thank you for being in this space. So I am sharing the screen. Can you see it correctly? Yes. So, hi, I am Lisa Gilardino. I am a curator and a hiking guide based in Bologna, in northern Italy. And today I will share a little bit about the project, The Mountain Range Beyond Borders, by Helle Siljarholm, that I had the pleasure to curate. Helle is a Norwegian artist. She's a choreographer, a researcher, and a visual artist. Her body of research is connected to geological formations and how their entanglements can be a way to interweave deep past, present, and possible futures. Somehow, how from this material we can, if possible, find new ways to cohabit. What more than human materials can teach us about life on this planet. The image you see It's from an iteration of her project, The Mountain Body, that happened within the festival Åscena in Norway, in a fjord. And you can see a mountain climber because Helle's project is the mountain body is started, I would say, as a choreography for a mountain, a group of mountain climber, and whatever can happen at the same time, meaning that in this type of research, landscape and nature are literally a co-curator of the event. In this slide, you can see a map with a partner. We've marked the partners we collaborated with for this project. I thought it was important to share also this because it's the first time that in a European project, or more widely in a type of collaboration, we started to look for partners starting from the geological and natural characteristic of the sites they are active in. Of course, then it was also important to tune in terms of artistic profile of institutions and value system. But the mountain range beyond border is not just, let's say, a title. You can really see it here. It's a cycle, and it's starting from Val Gardena, which is in the Italian Dolomites. It goes through Pyrenees, pre-Pyrenees in Spain. It arrives in the São Miguel, which is one of the Azores Island in Portugal, and we ended in Reykjavik in Iceland. There won't be the time here, but this is really also a very precise choice in terms of tectonic plates, volcanic activities, and geological shifts. Here you can see an image of the first iteration of the project called The Sea of Rocks. It happened in July 24th in Val Gardena in the Dolomites. You can see some spectators chilling out on the grass. There was also a family of marmots there near. And the mountain that was a part of the choreography is on the right. It's a fantastic Danter Sepies. And the piece here was, as I said, the choreography for a mountain. In this case, we worked with 5 mountain climbers and a live musician. You can see people, spectators held headphones to have live music in direct. This was the result of many months of work. You can see here more of the spectators. Of course, this work plays a lot also with what is visible and what is invisible. Spectators, it's an immersive experience for spectators, and they can choose their own level of proximity through some items. You can see a spectator with a binocular, and also different level of like this image with the mountains would be the first sight spectators would encounter. And then with the binoculars, you can see on the right top a climber with a costume a little bit disguised on the mountain. Here also we have a couple of climbers in the beautiful natural scenario. This was really a massive project and the result of weeks of rehearsals in 3 different periods with 11 people traveling, most of them from Norway, but also from Belgium and Italy. We presented the project together with a dance festival, Bolzano Danza, and a biennial of visual art, Biennale Gardenia, very active in the valley where we worked. And we reframed the presentation of the work through like a site-specific intervention for the opening of the Biennale, a show within the dance festival, but also a studio visit on the mountain, opening up the rehearsal process. When I saw the open call of Perform Europe, I thought it was the perfect click to reimagine, reinvent the project with a very simple starting point to reduce the traveling people. Because the dramaturgical frame of Helle's research is climate collapse, and we all live every day with many contradictions. But I thought it was interesting to challenge this type of project, trying to reduce traveling. And that happened by step, I would say. This image is a sunset in Castelsespasa near Olot, where there is a fantastic seismograph festival in Spain. And there we had the second iteration of the project called Timeless Streams, Whispers of Earth in April 25. And here we reimagined the same format, working with mountains and mountain climbers, but with two big shifts. All pre-production was from remote, and we worked with local climbers for the first time. This was made possible because of the fantastic work of the local festival, who chose the venue and did all the selection of the climbers. You can see in the image there is also like a big difference, because in the Dolomites the mountain was frontal and people was chilling on a grass field. In Spain we worked on mountains along a creek, and the spectators were walking. This was a big shift in the dramaturgy of the piece, and they had also some part of the work along the river, as you can see from these images. We went directly to the venue, for the venue meaning the natural park, 10 days before the premiere. This is really drastic, because in Helle's work, even where a ray of light arrive, it's dramaturgy, it's part of the choreography. So it was somehow also risky to imagine something like this, but I think it was really an enriching process, and it was very fun to receive a lot of videos from the festival team that dedicated a lot of weekends to do mountain hike to find the right spot, and also to work for the first time with local climbers. It helped because they could share a deep knowledge about their mountains. Here we change a completely scenario. We are in São Miguel, in the Azores Islands, where we worked with the Walk and Talk Biennial. And here we really changed the frame of work, exploring the underwater. Of course, the Azores Islands are volcanic islands, so also the underwater, basically, it's a mountain. And we presented two works there, like a performance on the beach of Caloura, starting from a script Helle wrote together, inspired by the conversation with a local volcanologist, Nuno Pereira, about black smokers, which is a geological phenomena that happens on the ocean bed, and that is almost invisible. The question here is, how can we relate with invisible landscape, and how can we protect landscapes that we even don't see? You see, this issue about visibility comes back, and for this project, Helle built some small sculptures that you can see with driftwoods coming from other island. Wood is another organic material that keeps a very visible trace of time on it, and local shells. And you can see also a small drawing by Helle. This small sculpture were goggles, so a little bit like the binoculars on the Dolomites, where are visual dispositive that the spectators worked with during the performance, but ended with a floating practice. Yes.
You have like 1 minute to wrap it up, and then we're going to have your question later. Thank you.
And Yeah, we finished in Iceland with something completely different, a home performance based on a text by fantastic poet and writer Mazen Marouf. Mazen is a Palestinian artist who lives in Reykjavik since years, and he wrote a text about rocks, spiritual geology, elves, and loss. And this happened in his house that you can see in these images. So, like very briefly, I hope I gave a trajectory of something that started from with a massive choreography for a mountain and ended up with a very intimate poetic lecture in a private house, still keeping the same work in terms of dramaturgy. You can see some rocks we collected on the island and that were part of presentation in Reykjavik. Yeah, at this link you can find more materials and all that I forgot to say. I just wanted to say hi if for any chance some of the partners or accomplices of this fantastic journey is in the room and I don't see them at the moment. Thank you. And I can pass the words to Alexandra Mihali.
Thank you very much, Lisa. It was amazing to hear about the project. I will also start sharing my screen. Just a second. Can you see it? Everything is okay? Okay, thank you. So I'm Alexandra Mihali. I'm working with Angash Collective in managing and developing projects on dance and performance. I will go a bit shortly through the practice of the association. Angash Collective is an association funded by choreographer Simona Diaconescu more than 10 years ago. And it's one of the main and the most active based in Romania, in Bucharest, focusing on creation and international distribution. In 2024, we decided to apply for the Perform Europe, especially for this context of distributing the works that are produced and co-produced by the association. Conceptually, we are working with, we are making projects that are mostly interdisciplinary. They have a documentary approach. And we are mostly working in international teams. And one of the most toured shows is Blood, Body Line of Thought, the show that we were also proposing for this touring. It is made by choreographer Simona Diaconescu, based in Bucharest, together with Vanessa Goodman, who is based in Canada. The show, and here you can see a couple of images from previous places where the show was traveling before this touring. It traveled in, of course, Romania, Canada, Germany, Bulgaria, Sweden, Mexico, and Poland. And yeah, through this grant, we managed to reach all these partners, nine partners that we had. It started from wanting to make a touring in the Balkans, in the neighboring countries, but because we managed to find connections up until Italy and Austria, we spread it even more, which was a challenge for us in terms of implementing the project. But while I will leave a bit of the video that we did, gathering both shows and interviews and experiences during the process, I will just shortly mention that we applied for this project because it was in connection with the priorities of Perform Europe, of course, but also because we wanted to give the opportunity to it to be better seen internationally. Blot is a project that touches upon the relationship between bacteria in our body and how we interconnect with the microbiome of our own bodies, and it is in a way in between choreography show and conference. And because of this topic, we also included a series of dance film, short dance films that we selected through the Bucharest Dance Film Festival that Simona is also doing. So in terms of, we had 9 shows. We also had a series of workshops that Simona was holding in a couple of the places. What is important maybe to mention because of the topic of today's talk is that through this grant we managed to rethink a bit about the scenography, but before going, and it's also in relation to the initial plan and to the actual context that we had during the touring. So we, from the beginning, we imagined that we are going to do this tour by car, and while applying this very nice and logic itinerary, but because of both changes in plans of some of our partners, but also in terms of social political events, we ended up with the second itinerary, which was also another reason to rethink the scenography, because if at first we wanted to travel with a car truck next, I mean, attachment to the car, this would have been more difficult and expensive, and we started to rethink, because this show initially had used 1 ton of salt that you can see in the salt dunes. And this was always a negotiation with the venues and with the partners to gather this amount of salt. And also below this salt, it was another type of structure. So together with Vanessa and her team in Canada, and Diana, a scenographer based in Bucharest, we did a lot of research on how to be able to transport another type to keep, of course, the visual image, but to rethink the way in which this is constructed, and also to make it easier for the dancers who are traveling to the choreographer to mount it every time. I mean, it should have been it is easier to install and to travel with it. And besides, another reason, another challenge for rethinking the scenography was also the need to fit in this type of car luggage on top of the cars, and it was always this dimension that it's taken into account. And now after the tour in Europe, we also had another tour in Canada where we made it even smaller so that it can be fit in this luggage and travel also by plane. So yes, a couple of more images from the shows. And because of this grant, we also managed to do a visual story to invite neurodivergent audiences to participate at the events. for this, it was important. I mentioned this just because having so many partners, it was difficult to communicate with them in one time only. So it was a lot of communication one by one. But because of this training that we had with Acceso Cultura, an association dedicated to this context, we managed to meet all and to have this moment in which we are all together in working in the working process. And yes, this is just a couple of last images in which I'm sharing the way in which the team was working, both on the car and mounting the structure of the show. And this is it. This is part of the small team. It was a challenging process also because it was for Tangash Collective, and also for each of us in the team, actually. It was the first time we were leader and also participating in an European project. But yes, I think if it's I would end it here. And if you have questions, I would be happy to answer. And yeah, I will stop my share. And I would invite Alexandra to continue and to share her presentation. Alexandra Wingate, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It was lovely to hear about both of your projects. It's a shame I couldn't see it. That would have been amazing. So I am also going to share. Okay, so I'm going to present Animalariums Constellations, Shows for Futures. It's a project where I, together with Liv Schalander, worked with performances or workshops to talk about interdependence and climate change, climate emergency in connection to its locality. So I'm going to start by showing a short little film.
Welcome to constellation number 2.
So that was a very short little teaser from when we were in Norwegian Sápmi in Gilardino. But at the heart of our artistic project is an emerging artistic practice called choreo constellating, where we blend improvisation, choreography, systemic inquiry, and systemic constellation work, which allows us to work with our thematics as a sort of dynamic, complex relational system, and also to embody this system through dance, gesture, sound, singing, and talking. And I'm going to talk mostly about one of our process tools, which is the map, which is how we map the thematics of the work, but also how we make our work site-specific. So what you're seeing now is the map we had in one of our places, Ställbergsgruva. So at sort of what we were curious about is this sense of living in a time where there's a looming disaster in the future. We named this in sort of the harshest term as extinction. And it was, of course, we had to focus on climate emergency, but there are also, of course, other things that we are sort of fearing in this time. And because there is a sense of moving towards this, time in itself was important, and we defined it as living in a time of a countdown. And then living in that situation as an individual and as a society, we need dreams. We do have terror and anxiety dreams, but we also need dreams and visions that can maybe move us away from that disaster. And we also got interested in the politics of dreaming. So whose dreams have more power to change and create worlds? Here we're not all equal, sort of political and economical and, army power sort of dictates whose dreams dominate the world. And this is another version of the map where it's laid out on stage so that the audience can walk through it. And in this one, the audience could kind of look at it throughout the day, because we were part of a day-long festival. But this is some sort of versions of how the map was. And we're going back to this map because I'm going to talk a little bit about how it was made site responsive. So we went to 3 very different places. We went to Govdugeno, or Kautokeino in Norwegian and English, which is in Norwegian Sápmi. So north, above the Arctic Circle, inland Norway, sort of above Sweden, and it is part of Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Russia, where Sami people live, so indigenous Europeans. So here we looked at these topics that I said: countdown, extinction, and dreaming, in relationship to a place that have suffered colonization, is suffering assimilation, is very affected by climate change, both in the sense of generally nature is suffering, but also, of course, a very sort of culture-bearing, integral practice of reindeer herding is threatened by the sort of changing ice and snow condition and what it means for the reindeer. And also now a sort of green wave of colonization, which is everyone wants, well, not everyone, but the green transition requires new resources. And again, there is sort of land conflicts and declining natural habitat from the sort of development of the Arctic. The other place we went to is Stellbergs Gruva, which is a old closed down iron mine that has been remade into an art center in an area of Sweden called Bergslagen. And Bergslagen is sort of inland Sweden, located between Oslo and Stockholm, in the middle there. And it's an area of Sweden that has had mining as sort of a primary source of income and business and creating community for about 1,000 years. But sort of late 70s, there was like a collapse, an extinction of it, a shutdown, where the mines, the sawmills, and the steelworks all shut down. So Stellberg is a place where an extinction has happened, which is the same as colonization, but it was like a tear, a very quick event. So the place, of course, depopulation, and what comes from that is a withdrawn societal presence. So hospitals, public transport, police, everything sort of moves away. There is unemployment, there is unhealth, there is depopulation, there is populism, there is land and water is poisoned. The landscape is full of sort of mining holes. And also in that part of Sweden, and a lot of Sweden, almost all the forest is planted. So it's a lot of like spruce fields and also clear-felled areas. And the last place we went to was Vienna, where we collaborated with Book Performing Arts and Future Farm. And Future Farm is a initiative in the outskirts of Vienna. So Vienna is a growing city. And they are sort of working with and trying to understand and, in a way, creating solutions for and sort of realistic utopia around food production in cities, and trying to create sort of a circular food production when it comes to water and energy. And working in a city, a big city like that, is very different from Govdugeno and Stellbergs Gruva, who are sort of small, rural, resource-weak areas, but also in a way easier to define the topics. In Vienna, it can be so many things. But we sort of focused in on climate change effects on the city, and then issues around pollution, heat, decline of natural habitat, and a lot about sort of soil, since soil is like a key part of creating food. And the map you see here is the one in Stellberg. I don't know if you can see my little arrow, but the sort of key. So this is how we made the thing site responsive. So we went to each place and we had headlines, and then together with our collaborators, we kind of filled out the topics under the headlines. So at the center of our map and our piece is what we call symptoms, which is where extinction would end. It's that negative repercussion we are imagining in the future, but also maybe living with now. So this is Stelberg. So we have, for example, nostalgia, we have clear-felled areas, we have greenwashing, we had venture capitalism, broken promises, etc. And then we were interested in the lineage. So what are the possible reasons for why we ended up with these symptoms? And then we sort of spent time describing the locality. So where are we at a macro level, like more kind of globally, what is this place? And then locally, how would we describe it? And then local players. And we have always sort of worked with the more than human perspective. So very much here, we didn't necessarily describe lots of different people. We wrote we people, we humans. And then we have different elements from nature. But also, for example, here at local players, we have New Boliden, which is Sweden's biggest commercial mining company. So kind of what defines locality and what is local players is sort of not so human-centric. And we always have nature as undivided system. And then we worked a lot with time, right? Countdown, different kinds of time. Countdown, immediate, a lifetime, eternal, cyclical, and 7 generations. And then since we had an idea about some kind of disaster affecting us possibly in the future or having had happened, we work with the before, after, and future. And the future element became very important. So to invite the future in, our descendants, those who will be affected by what we do today in the future. And then the dreams, so
Sandra,
different dreams. Yes?
I need to ask you to wrap it up soon, like 30 seconds, a minute.
Oh,
And conclude, yes.
okay. Oh, sorry. Did I spend that much time talking on this? Okay, I'm just going to jump to then some parts of the... Yes, you're going to be looking at this. This is audience part in selecting. So you're just going to like contemplate a little bit on this while I talk a little bit about what it meant to tour this work. So I'm going to focus a little bit on Gilardino because it's the place that was the furthest away physically, but also culturally, where we kind of had to learn the most things. And we work in the way that we are in the place, let's say 2 or 3 weeks to research and then also give workshops. So we give the possibility for professionals, but also community workshops to take part of the method and sort of experience the topics by themselves. And then we work with a local performer in a short-term process. They work with us for 5 or 6 days and sort of perform together with us. And in Gilardino, we collaborated with Ecological company, which is a dance company. And what we sort of learned there, that Ecological company is not a house. They don't have a stage. They don't have an audience context and audience contract. And we were a little bit sort of... we trust that our format is definitely accessible for different people who have maybe not super much experience with watching theater and art, but it's not really possible in a resource weak place and a very sort of countryside place to market it. So the workshop went really well. The collaboration with Ecological company went really well, but the performance in itself, we didn't get that much audience, which was different in Stelberg and in Book. And in a way, we would have needed longer time to sort of plan to either really hit a better context to be accessible and be part of something else. Because I think, yeah, if you're going to be green, you have to be very resource minded, and you have to be very sort of, is it worth going where I'm going and using resources to make art to show it somewhere? It's sort of easy to be very positive and happy about your work, but frugalness is an important part, both when you plan the tour and when you sort of judge your artistic work. And one aspect which I think we succeeded in when we came to Gilardino when it comes to this is that our aim wasn't to go somewhere where we were sorry, because I'm trying to speed it, I'm losing the trail a little bit, but it's about being frugal and about sort of being specific about what you give. I already have working relationships with the people, several people in Gilardino. I'm not Sami, but I have an entrance. So when I come there and I use resources to come there, I'm giving into a reciprocal relationship. I'm also meeting people who haven't met me and haven't taken part in what I do, but I'm actually building on something that exists. So we took this project as a part of both showing and exposing and giving to different places, but also strengthening already existing networks. So to sort of practice frugality and specificness in each part of what you do, from conception to planning travel to buying food, to whatever you do, and not having the thought of kind of like new, big, expansive, rather a specific, reciprocal, intentional, and yeah. But, you know, to do that in Gilardino, we would have probably needed to plan 2 years ahead with everyone's schedule and everything to kind of fit it into the right place. Or we should have let go of thinking we want to perform and just do workshops. So to be adaptable and self-critical. So we do something that is open for many people, but it is a sort of city art form. So even if we had the best marketing in the world, you know, it's still very hard in a context like that to market. And my last point is that Stellberg is very similar, you know, countryside, not a lot of, let's say, conceptual art consumerism, but Stellberg in itself is a context that all the time works on creating a context where the audience knows they can come, hang out, have a good time, chat, and see art. But in Gilardino, we had to self-organize because LSO company is not a theater. You know, we could self-organize because I have worked there before, but workshop did well, performance well, but not so many people.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. You know what? It's actually I think towards the end, you said something extremely interesting. And I actually want to start the discussion between you three, kind of taking from the last point that you had, because you were talking about your challenges and specifically also the intersection between doing work that it's greener indeed, but it's also in connection with community. And we always talk about these two things too often as two separate things, but actually where we're heading towards is to do a green and work that also, you know, support the work that we do with communities and really eradicate your work in the locality, as you said. So to open the discussion, indeed, I just want to ask all of you again, maybe Alexandra, you can add also some more layers that you were trying to say. What were like the main challenges, but also what did you realize? What are your findings and your learnings that you had during the tour really about this, making your touring as well as your work greener? What is the tips also that you will give people in the room in this sense? Whoever wants to start.
Well, I can start, but I think what I learned in this project, it's also very specific about the way Helle Celia works and the way we work together. I think I was very inspired by both your two presentations, and there are two words that really stayed with me from the last intervention, and it's frugal and specificity. It's so with me that I can't tell it, but because what I think I learned through this project was, but for me it was both work-wise and personal, on a personal level, really life-changing. Is that when you take out things, because as I said, from a project that needed 2 years of work, 3 residencies, and 10 people who have been working on the project for years, and then you arrive at a certain point where you travel to a destination only with me and Elle, and you create everything in 10 days with a limited also budget for production. It's for me, it had to be to face very, very, very directly the unknown, and also like developing other tools completely. And I think we started from the idea of traveling less, or like diminish the travels, or like being more green. But what we discovered is that this, at least in this case, because I think it could also have turned quite in a different way, it brought a lot of levels of meanings, very deep, and it opened up gradually a deeper sharing with the local communities. We started with a touring group, and we ended with like the project in Reykjavik. It was really like we defined it as a co-authorship with me, Elle, and Mazen. And I think it's not by chance that like I can see the dramaturgy of the 4 iteration, like going deeper and opening up. I think it could have turned differently. There were moments where, like, I think something I learned is how to face doubts, because when you write an application, everything, look very fabulous. But there were moments, I don't know if you also partner in crimes had the same feeling, but there were moments where I also questioned the fact that to change radically the context and the way to present this research, if it was really a way to also fulfill the artistic potential of the research, or if there was the risk of making it more fragile. This is something we discovered along the way, and I think one of the biggest satisfaction of the work project is that it went in the good direction. So I think it has to do, to answer your question, with being frugal, being specific, activating deep listening. On so many levels, being able to build a relation of trust with the welcoming structure, being adaptable, very quick and flexible in also tuning in different way of works, because every partner we worked with had a completely different production mode, teams, everything was different. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, I think you did, and you gave, I hope, a lot of inspiration, maybe for Alex also, to tell us a little bit how it went for them in that sense.
Yes, I mean, I think I will go more practical, because for us it was a show that it's with a certain structure, and we didn't change it at all conceptually. But because of that, I think we had also more time, and we had the challenges that we had are more in relation to actual touring. And for us, it was a lot of learning in terms of time and travel, because so the traveling team were the 2 dancers, 1 choreographer, and 1 technician, all women traveling by car from Romania through Europe, the map that you already saw. And coming back, and also during these 6 weeks of continuous traveling, we were discussing a lot about exhaustion and about the way in which this approach towards traveling by car, being more ecological, also has a bit about, has a discussion, must have a discussion about what it does to your body and to your time and to your energy, and how then you present yourself in the context for which you are working, in the presentation context. And because we had of course, a lot of different partners to deal with, which were amazing and with which we managed to communicate very well, but with different levels of understandings and of experiences in terms of managing a project, an European project, a grant, then also continuous tour and all these issues. So also this learned us a bit about how at some point, of course, we could have done two tourings in this from this project, not one, and arrive at this at this discussion about exhaustion, and also having a bit more time for network and for understanding the local context in which they were traveling, spending more time with the partners, spending more time with understanding the local scene, going to other shows in the context in which this show was part of a festival. They didn't have time to participate in the festival. It was just a couple of days in which they were working and then going further to the next stop. So I think it's this is one of the most important things that we learned. And but on the other hand, it was, of course, very good for us to rethink the structure of the setup, and which makes us now easier to propose the project to venues, because, of course, we took more work from on our side, but then it's easier for venues to receive the project. And yeah, I hope I answered. And yeah,
I thought I could just add, I think I find that to be able to do this is almost like you have to think about production and touring and implementation together with the artistic idea. That making art is, in a way, you're like, freedom, I'm gonna make, my visions and my ideas. But if you're going to be frugal and specific, you need to already in the conception think about the production and what it means in terms of what resources you use. Because also, I don't think there's anyone who's like working with an abundance of economical resources. And very often, if you conceive of an idea that needs more than you have, it is what Lisa and Alex said, it's the human resource that suffers. It's either the capacity to gain more from being in a place more, or it's like actually the artists themselves, or you don't have time to really listen and be with the people you're having a workshop with, for example, because you need to have excess of energy when you're doing all of these things. So for us, and one thing that I think we did really succeed with was like, we worked together in 2016, and this was like the first time we managed to do it, to conceive of an idea where we could take care of ourselves and the people we worked with the whole time. And our process required that because of and I didn't go into that, but we do a very high wire act of improvisation. And kind of then like actually taking care of relationships in the group is integral for the artistic sort of level. Is it good or not? Depends on that. Yeah. And I mean, we traveled quite far from Vienna to Gilardino. If Liv was going to take the train, there would have been 3 days. So, we chose flights sometimes, again, saving resources, and maybe there wasn't time. You're going from one project to another one, but where we could, we did sort of choose other ways and like take time and research it. Yeah, but a mistake. I went to Vienna by train 2 days, but my body was very fucked up by that from sitting for full kind of 9-10 hours. And yeah. Anyway.
No, thank you. Indeed, as we with this conversation, we really wanted to in practice, indeed, because as you guys said, there is so many nice conversation that we can have about, the conceptualization, specifically about green practices. There is always about a little bit of an abstract to it, but the idea really was like, okay, but how did it went on practical, and what are the trade-offs, indeed, on wanting to innovate and actually dealing with resources, reality, tiredness, human resources, and so on. So maybe another curiosity that I have is to talk more about scenes that you have seen in the audience and the impact directly that you might have seen on the road. So specifically, when all of your works and all of your touring were also dealing with green thematics, and we were curious to know if there is any anecdote or like surprising impact that you had on your audiences and your community throughout the tour. That would be interesting to hear.
It's hard to know after a while if it was surprising or not. It's like you integrated it into your reality. Yeah, I think for us in Gilardino, which was surprising was how incredibly interesting it was to work with an interpreter, because language was very important since we were site responsive. So each map was translated, but not just translated, actually like culturally immediated. And in Gilardino, we had a live interpreter who worked with us in rehearsal and then in performance. And since it's improvised, she also had to like really improvise. And the sort of, I guess, beauty of that, and also how it creates connection with the audience, and kind of, yeah, how we became less foreign. I mean, because the language was interpreted, but also because the interpreter was so integrated into the piece. And she became a performer and a voice, you know. Yeah. I think that was not something we had seen it as a practical thing, but it was really a strong aspect of the art in a way and connection.
I think I've been surprised in both before situations by the level of engagement of spectators, but maybe there is a sort of pre-selection, because anyway, in one case you had to go to a mountain, in another case you had to go to a valley, in the third case it was on the beach. But maybe the two situations that surprised me more in terms of spectators' reaction was in the Azores, because like after two iterations where we worked with mountain climbers, where of course the top priority when you work with climbers is safety, but there is always a tension around it because it is a risky activity. And so when we arrived at Azores and we had this idea of the beach and the floating, a somatic relaxing experience, and then for the opening of the Biennale, Hurricane Gabriel wanted to attend. So the day of the premiere, there were 8 meters waves. Yes. So, like, of course, we didn't do it the day of the premiere. It would have been dangerous. But even the day after, when we managed to access the ocean in security, the water was much colder than we expected. So and people jumped in and stayed. We built this sort of floating devices with very simple pull object that helped a little bit the body to float. But this, I like the level of physical engagement, I was not expecting, and in Reykjavik also on a different way, because the fact of the apartment we worked in to present the show, it is Mazen's house, and this created a super special atmosphere, and you could feel that spectators. I don't know. There was a very special sense of intimacy that we shared with a lot of respect, also entering the space of someone else. So yes, I think it was in different situations and for different reasons a very engaged and also the fact that in many situations people wanted to speak with the artist after and never went away, which turned to be a problem in Reykjavik because we had many slots and you can kick out people after, we have been trying for the work. But yes, I felt a deep sense of presence in many spectators.
In our case, although it's this distance between audience and the stage, but we wanted to discuss. I mean, we had this planned from a communication point of view. We wanted to have interviews with people afterwards, and I mean, most of them were impressed about the movement and how the movement translates the subject. So it was indeed a relation towards the choreography and the context that the piece is talking about. But because you're mentioning about the audience, I think it was important for us and for the partners who managed to implement the visual story in their own context. It was important to also try to translate a different, I mean, to try to share a piece that it has a lot of things that are nudity and music that can be difficult for people with with neurodivergent audience. So we didn't necessarily changed the artistic piece. We only maybe made the show a bit more lighter, or but keeping the same music, keeping the same visual elements, and of course the movements were the same. But the fact that they were able to understand this before, and in I think in Hungary, at L1 Studio, they also had a meeting with Simona Diaconescu, with the choreographer, before the event, in order to understand what it will be happening. And afterwards, the discussion was that it was really helpful, and it was yeah, a good thing that we did. And also in terms of us and the partners, I think this helped the institutions in each case to test this, because I mean, a couple of them were already working with different type of audiences, but most of them not. And it was really a time in which they could test this as well, and to also learn because of the training that we had. So I had, at least I had a good feedbacks from them that yeah, even though it was very difficult to actually find to reach the people, and most of them were reticent to participating to a show, and then going further to the specifics of the show. Yeah.
All right. Thank you all indeed. I was wondering if we have, between the other people in the room, if there are any questions, or if you had any other curiosity about each other that you wanted to ask as well. And for the people in the room, you can also write in the chat, and I can read them out loud.
I have a little question for Alexandra,
Yes.
building on what you were talking about. I worked with neurodivergent children and youth. So where did you access information about how to structure that intervention to create the link so that they could comfortably watch the performance?
Well, we through the grant, we accessed an NGO who is working with this. So we had a series of calls and training session in which they were explaining to us how we should interpret and what changes we need to do and how to build this visual story. But then, because we had a show in Bucharest before starting the tour, we invited both a neurodivergent person and also a representative of an NGO who would give us feedback exactly on what they saw. And but what I've learned is that it's also very different from country to country and from context. So what the feedbacks that we received in Bucharest were different from the feedbacks that we received from the association based in Portugal. And then it's also, of course, for us difficult to understand what we need to do actually, and also not for us necessarily, but for each venue what they actually need to do. And I don't think I mean, I don't think they respected all the necessities, like having a calm space, having a space with toys that they can, I mean, the objects they can use in case they need to leave and all this. But then also it wasn't necessary, but I think it's something that that's why I'm saying about testing this, because it's a decision actually for each venue if they want to make it implement this in their own way of working, just test it by show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I see there is a question in the chat.
Yeah, exactly.
I can read it.
Yes,
So
thank
this
you.
is from Shoban Anderson and says, did you provide an information guidance for audience to be able to reach activity by public transport in a sustainable way, especially if happening in more rural location? And also I will add, how did it go?
Yeah.
You did it.
I can go because we had many rural locations, basically all. We had this conversation with the institution presenting the projects, and it turned out in different ways, depending on locations. But it was not everywhere the best possible. But we tried to find also, let's say that we posed the question both in terms of being green and sustainable, but also a great challenge was to be accessible. For example, in the Dolomites, the reason when we took 10 days to find the right mountain, it is because we found one that had a cable car that could arrive and a mountain hut. So there was free position for the audience. You could access through the mountain with the mountain cable and experience the project from the terrace of a mountain hut from a bit more of a distance. And you had another possibility to walk a little bit. And then another one, which another station for spectator would require 20 minutes walking. But it was very complex, of course, to find, of course, no, it should not be a mountain location that could be accessible also for people with movement issues. So this was always in our mind. In other situations, the festival took the responsibility of organizing a bus for all the spectators in terms of reducing the impact of single traveling, but also this helped us in terms of giving freedom if we had to do changes, small changes. I mean, the area of intervention was, of course, decided before, but it helped us if we had to do changes once we saw the location, because in Spain, in Azores and in Iceland, we all see the locations or 1 week or 2 weeks before the presentation.
I can answer that shortly as well. So in Govdogeno, in both Govdogeno and Stellberg, the societal organization is a bit withdrawn, so there isn't public transport. So in Govdogeno, everyone uses a car, or, you drive with someone who has a car. It's also very cold there. You cannot live without car. But you could in the past, but people don't do now. And then in Stelberg, if you live close, you come by car. But Stelberg's mine have a system of sort of people who are traveling from further away who comes with the train, they get picked up. But it's not possible to travel from the train station to the mine with public transport. So it's like, yeah, not possible.
Yeah, we also have a couple of other question are coming in. One is for you, Alex, directly. From Quentin, I see Quentin asking, did you meet any issue between this long tour and family restraints in the touring team? They used to work in my artist team. They have difficulty to be available for very long tour, and taking more time in touring sustainable resources can be an obstacle. So.
Actually, yes. It was difficult to find a technician. I mean, the technician with which the show is usually touring recently had a baby, so it was impossible to leave home so many weeks. But of course, we are happy with Hermina, the technician that we ended up, because it was also one of the people we wanted to work with. But yes, I mean, it was difficult, not necessarily with dancers and choreographer who are more, I mean, dedicated, and in a way they prioritize this because, yeah. But in terms of wider team, yes, it's usually this problem in our association when we are trying to do these long tours. Also, the one that it was recently in Canada. It was for almost 2 months. So again, it was. I mean, it's in a way it's good that we managed to do this long touring, and it's connected one after the other, and then people know that they are working for this certain project. But then it's also a matter of blocking from any other context and any other projects and life, and yeah.
In our case, oh, sorry. In our case, with Helle, we worked it out in a way that in one situation she went before, and in another one I went before, and this happened because I think it can happen because we have worked together for many years and there is a deep trust. So when she went there before, she took care also of things. It was the same my role too. And when I went before to the Azores Island, for example, I directed an actress recording the voice for the sound installation, which is not actually my usual, but yeah, we backed our backs reciprocally.
Thank you both. I'm asking you another question from the chat, which is more about the future, let's say, of your touring. So now that it's over, perhaps from Suyin is asking, do you think this could be done a second time? So are you thinking of redoing it? If so, I'm asking about what adjustment would you make it to continue, then make it something that it's really becoming a model for you. So going from this testing to actually the mainstream, do you imagine this happening?
I might go because for me it's already happening. I am a freelancer professional, so I work in many different projects. But like in the relation with Helle, Cilia Home, what happened is that, for example, to get very practical, a presenter came when we presented the work in Olot in the Pre-Pyrenees, and they wanted the same project in Valencia. But this methodology we developed through the project was already organically in us. So we did a bit of research, and it was very spontaneous for us to say, what about thinking something differently? And now we are starting a dialogue with the local university, because Helle's new project has to do with bird migration. And we discovered there is like a bird migration oasis near Valencia. So what we proposed them is to do a week 10 days of research and open up the process together with the local ornithologist as a sort of first step of Eller's research. But this happened, I mean, we're still on process with the festival in Valencia, and it's let's see how it will turn out. But from other side, it was very natural to say, what about looking if something would maybe fit better there? Yeah, so I wouldn't work like this with other artists I collaborate with. So this is really embedded in Helle's projectuality and the way we have to work together.
Yeah, we are not, of course, we are not the people who decide if someone wants to show our work or not. So our desire is obviously to do it, and we're trying to just the reality of how arts funding is now shrinking. We're trying to understand if we can do a slimmed down version or find partners to collaborate where we also apply for money and they apply for money. So collaboration like that. But it's for sure, yeah, something we're interested in. We're interested in working in this way of kind of having a deeper engagement with a place. And it's also very interesting to have a performance where the audience is somehow the owner of the content, right? Because we make a site responsive map and then the audience is choosing what actually goes into space and becomes embodied in that performance. That I think is just very fun and like interesting and satisfying on a personal level, and also in a sense of how we experience that the audience experience it, that they experience it. They have much more ownership of what they're seeing, and that is very sort of satisfying and fun and thought-provoking for the audience. But we are trying. Hopefully we succeed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's the same for it's the same for us in terms of the struggle to find venues and places where to show the artworks that Tangash Collective is making. But of course, as I said, what I've learned from this is that this type of tours should be take more care to the time that you spend in one place and another, and not to be from always running. And then, and on the other hand, yes, this is the way in which Tangash Collective works and survives through applications, to grant applications, either internationally or locally, either through presenters or again, national context in which we are making projects in order to be able to either tour the works that we already have or build up new ones, and always trying to not only show a project but bring either learnings through workshops or other type of events, talks and conferences that can build up on the subjects that are discussed in the artworks. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say, of course, what you're saying, I think, is resonating to all the 42 projects that experimented this. And at the end, it's really this core of saying, okay, we're not touring just because it has to be part of our business model, but because it's part of a reasoning that it's an artistic need as well as a need for the audiences to connect. So yeah, thank you for bringing that on the surface, indeed.
And I just thought about one more short point. Again, this thing about, which I hear in what you're talking about as well, is like not to constantly feel like you need to conceive of a completely new project, and work with new people and a new process. It's something about like building on what you have, which is not necessarily always what sort of funding bodies like. They like the new, so it's like you're a little bit in competition or like confrontation with how funding is given. At least my experience in Sweden is heavy focus on innovation. Instead of saying we did this thing that worked well, we're going to do approximately the same but work with maybe a little bit different themes. But it's also part of being frugal, right? and like deepening something rather than new, better, bigger, expanding. Yeah.
Yeah, and the question really becomes, what do we mean by innovating tooling?
Yeah, exactly.
That's become really the key, because it can become so many different things, and adding, as you said, one detail actually can bring a whole different perspective when we talk about touring and artistic works, of
Yeah.
course. Checking the chat if there is some other questions. I've seen one still for you, Alex, and it's more from a methodological perspective. If you can answer, Camille is asking, while in the rehearsal room, how did you translate the research questions or topic into movement? Is there a starting point for you? Posture, gesture, choreographic operation, relationship with the space, and so on.
Yes, I will try to answer in the name of the choreographer. So it was a long process initially, because as I said, it's a project that was premiered in 2020, and this was after a research process that Simona, together with Simona Diaconescu, together with Vanessa Goodman, made in a couple of residency places, and also at first the project was they were the ones who were performing, and the way in which they are already working is that they are making this research that they are including also in the final piece. The fact that you will yeah, I mean, in the show you have a lot of conference type of elements, like comparisons in between different realities and inner realities from our body, and this is translated, yes, in the way in which they are moving on the stage, and in the way in which they are working with repetitive elements, and also at some point they are sharing through microscope a bacteria that they are growing from their own body 1 month before the traveling. So it's all this connects to the way in which the final show is presented. I'm not sure if I answered, but if more detail needed, I'm here. Yeah.
Now, okay. Yes, thank you, Alex. Do we have any last question? Because we have a last minutes. Looking again at the comments, but
There
still.
was one about audience numbers, I think. I saw it
Yeah, maybe
somewhere.
I missed it. Let me see. There was a comment from Ralph Lister, which I believe is also coming in the perspective of some other touring project. That says, in the performance of a rural area like crossing borders, taking family theater to rural communities, which is another project, the audience is local, over 50% live less 5 kilometers from the community venue. We also asked the audience how they travel, and a significant percentage walked or cycled. So indeed, reflecting on the question that you had before. Let me see. Yeah, and I see also a comment from Rachel Clare saying, I agree with Alexandra, comments on not always having to always create new work. We are interested in exploring the possibility that concept touring can offer. This will enable existing shows to be taught, workshopped, and adapted by local artists, by partners in other countries, so that they tour locally and then reduce carbon footprint and international travel. This will be difficult with the three case studies from today. So yeah, of course, I mean, this is like reflecting on the many different ideas that then they can spark from how this question of how we do things differently. So yeah, we have last couple of minutes. I don't know if all of you speakers want to have some last words, some last tips, anything that you want to share at the end.
It was fun to exchange, so thank you for creating
Yes.
this platform.
Quite scary, but also fun and interesting.
Yeah, and in a way, I realized that we are all in our bubbles implementing our projects and trying to do, but we don't know anything about any of the others other than, I don't know, the quick search on Perform Europe website. So Thank you both for sharing it. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed, and yeah, maybe I will keep in touch with you because both projects are something that are also on topics that I am interested in. So
Yeah,
yeah.
same to you.
All right. Then, yeah, thank you so much to the three of you. And indeed, I welcome everybody also from the other people in the room to get in touch. If you have further questions for all of them, you can find some more info on the Performio website for sure. So to wrap up today, what I will tell you is that indeed this was the second of the series of events, and we have our 2 events coming up. So if you like this one, we hope to see you in the next ones as well. The next event is on Friday, 6 February, still at 10 CET time. And we are going to have a similar structure as the event of today with 3 other projects presenting. And we're going to really focus on inclusive practices, really delving into how to work with underrepresented community, a topic that was touched also today because it's so embedded also in the green transition. So we will delve into it even more. And then on the 17th of February, still at 10 CET, we are concluding with the last event that we're calling Reimagine the Future of Touring in Practices. It's going to be an online participatory performance, so stay tuned. More information will be released very, very soon. So you can scan the QR code to register or sign up for when the registration are going to be live. And with this, I thank you all for being with us. It was so nice to see so many of you still connected through the whole of the event. Here you can find some information if you want to discover more about the project, get in touch with us in the team, follow us on social media. And thank you so much.
I have a last thing. The 6th of
Yeah.
February is a Sami Day, so Sami National Day, celebration of the
Wow.
forming of the Sami Parliament.
Okay.
So give a little cheer for that then.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.